folks, Trisha Curtis, CEO, Petronas, and host of the Petronas podcast. I'm in beautiful La Jolla, San Diego, California. It is August 7th, 2025. Right now, you're seeing oil prices at $63.88. We've had a considerable move down in oil prices. I think very, very much overdone. We just saw $70 a barrel days ago. So we're seeing a pretty volatile swing, a $7 movement, which is definitely not driven by supply and demand fundamentals. So if you've been following the news with this week, it's really been driven by tariff headlines, especially with regards to India, and tariffs mixed with sanctions. So what we're seeing is the move down in oil prices is potentially a potential meeting with Zelinsky, Putin, and Trump, and to try to get a ceasefire, try to get an end to this war. That is very interesting in the context of the reason you saw this pressure the previous weekend, last week, when we saw pressure on oil prices upward. That was because we saw all this rhetoric coming from Dmitry Medvedev, this rhetoric coming out of Russia, Trump's response with nuclear subs, and responding to this intense rhetoric coming out of Russia. So we had oil prices move up. Now we're seeing them come down because of a potential ceasefire or potential meeting. But what Trump has done this week is put a bunch of tariffs on other things, including chips and pharmaceuticals coming down the pipeline. And we've seen essentially Trump is looking like he's playing nice on TV with China, but actually these pass-through tariffs and all these other tariffs seem to be very focused on China. And then the biggie is with India. India consumes purchases over 2 million barrels a day of Russian crude. This Russian crude imports from India, or Indian Russian crude imports, went up significantly since the war in Ukraine because those barrels were unwanted by others, and they're at a discount. So India's been purchasing them hand over fist along with China. So India purchases over 2 million barrels a day. China purchases over 2 million barrels a day. And Trump had trouble with India in negotiating these tariffs. They ended up with a little higher rate than they wanted, and he's essentially saying, "Hey, we're going to tariff you more if you're buying this crude oil from Russia." So there's a lot going on with that. I don't think it's fair that oil prices are 63.88, given what we're seeing there. It seems to me that something is going to have to get sanctioned. I don't think that Putin is going to play ball. I think that he's going to kick the can down the road, and eventually those barrels are going to have to get sanctioned. Nobody's wanted to do that in previous times because of a potential spike in oil prices. But right now we have plenty of crude oil on the market. We have plenty of supply that could come on the market, especially from Saudi Arabia and other members of OPEC. So with that, folks, thank you so much for listening. The latest Petronas podcast is on China. It's on power. It's on national security. Is an absolute heavy hitter and a must listen to episode 137 of the Petronas podcast. Talk to you soon, folks. Bye.